Jayam Paramhams Prajacharya Sadasma Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Please Gaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gaur Govinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Girijavardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. नवद्वीप धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी the भक्तवृंद की जय. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maha-Bharata, Part 2, Chapter 26. Shalya leads the Kauravas. Scene 1. Duryodhana enters the battle. Less than 2 hours remained until sunset. Yudhishthir decided to press home his advantage. Seeing his enemies now disarrayed, Yudhishthir ordered his troops to attack. Inspired by the death of Karna, those troops fell upon the remaining Kauravas with loud shouts. The Kuru army had now lost all heart for the fight, and so they ran in all directions like bulls with broken horns. The Kauravas looked around in fear, expecting at any moment to see Arjuna and Bhima pursuing them, for it seemed to them today that those two Pandavas were everywhere. Then Duryodhana pulled himself together and came out forward for battle. Breathing hard, his face covered in tears, Duryodhana said to his chariot driver, "Take me into the fight. I will avenge my friend's death. Kunti's son will no more be able to resist me than the ocean can go beyond its shore. Today I will repay my debt to Karna by killing Arjuna and Govinda, the haughty Vrikodara, and my other enemies." And when they saw their leader riding into battle, the Kauravas were rallied. 25,000 warriors came together to face the Pandava forces. Bhimasena, observing the rules of fair combat, got down from his chariot to contend with the foot soldiers. Roaring out their battle cries and not fearing for their lives, the Kauravas rushed upon Kunti's son with raised swords and maces. Bhima laughed. Whirling his great iron mace named Shaitya, he moved among the Kauravas like a hawk. Heads, arms, and legs flew about as Bhima destroyed the troops. Soon, almost all of the 25,000 were slain, and the remainder had fled. Encountering the remnant of Duryodhana's brothers, Bhima quickly dispatched all of them to the abode of Yamaraj, either by smashing them with his mace or severing their heads with razor-faced shafts. In a rage, Duryodhana rushed against the Pandavas, discharging fiery arrows on all sides. Immediately, Duryodhana was surrounded by thousands of chariot fighters, who sent great showers of arrows at him. Countering the attack, the Kaurava prince slew the chariot warriors in large numbers. Duryodhana quickly struck down hundreds of fighters and sent up a great roar. Seeing his troops fleeing in fear of Bhimasena, Duryodhana called out to them, "Oh, where are you going, brave warriors? I see no place on earth, nor indeed the three worlds, where the Pandavas will not find and kill you if you flee. Their army is now quite small, so if we only stand together, we can still win. Follow your duties and fight, for death or glory are your only choices now. Slay your enemies or be slain by them, and thus attain heaven." But in spite of Duryodhana's exhortations, his troops continued to flee. Shalya then came up to Duryodhana and said, "O king, look at this dreadful scene. The earth is covered with the carcasses and mutilated limbs of the slain warriors. Your warriors are falling over each other in fear. Why, they can hardly move across this blood-soaked earth, and they are crying out for a protector. O Bharata hero, retreat now. The sun is setting. Remember, you are the root of all these evils. So go back to your camp and give your men some reprieve from the fighting." Duryodhana looked across at Shalya, seated on the empty chariot of Karna. Duryodhana was seized again with grief, and he cried out, "Oh, Karna! Oh, my dear friend!" Shedding his dying rays on the fallen body of his son Karna, Suryadev, the sun god, went in grief to the western hills. Both armies then withdrew from the fight, while the gods and rishis returned to their abodes. And as the warriors moved through the twilight, they looked upon the dead body of Karna, who seemed to light up the battlefield even in his death. Karna looked like a mass of pure gold, or like a fire quenched by a shower of arrows sent by Sabyasachi. Why, even the very earth itself seemed to send forth cries of, "Oh! Alas! Oh!" Mare Krishna Rakhe ki, Rakhe Krishna Mare ke, Rakhe Krishna Mare ki, Mare Krishna Rakhe ke. Scene 2. Duryodhana's valorous speech. But meanwhile, Yudhishthir was happy. At last, Karna had been slain. The Pandava king felt as if a great weight had been lifted from him, and as he stood on the battlefield, surrounded by his brothers, Krishna came before Yudhishthir and said, "Yes, by good fortune, the Suta's son now lays dead, while you and your heroic brothers are all well. Arjuna has fulfilled his promise, and the earth has drunk the blood of Karna. That wretched man who laughed at Draupadi has received his ultimate reward. Surely your chaste queen will rejoice upon hearing this good news. Soon Draupadi will sit by your side as you assume rulership over this prosperous earth." With tears in his eyes, Yudhishthir embraced Krishna and said, "O Keshava, it is no wonder that we have been successful with you as our support. O Vibhu, Almighty One, The wise Rishi Narada has informed me of your true identity, as well as that of my brother Arjuna. You two heroes, known as Nara and Narayana, are always engaged in maintaining virtue in the three worlds. Yudhishthir then climbed onto his chariot and rode back to camp. He saw the dead body of Karna lying on the battlefield, lit up by 1,000 oil lamps and surrounded by despondent Kaurava troops. The next morning, they would perform Karna's funeral rites, having left him for his final night on a hero's bed lying on the battlefield. Yudhishthir looked at Karna again and again. He could hardly believe his eyes. Yudhishthir said, "O dear Krishna, by your favor, we have achieved our object. Duryodhana surely will now give up all hopes for victory and even life itself. For 13 long years we have suffered and known only anxiety. Tonight we will sleep peacefully, freed of our burden." And as Arjuna and Krishna turned away from the battlefield, they looked like the sun and moon going down in the sky. They blew their conch shells, filling the four quarters with tremendous blasts. Gandharvas, Charanas, and Siddhas offered them praise and worship as they headed back to their camp, following Yudhishthir's track like the gods following Indra into Amaravati. All the Kauravas left the battlefield in despair. Kripa Acharya, Kritavarma, and Ashvatthama headed the troops as they returned to camp. Duryodhana, however, was crying. No one could console him, and he fell to the ground weeping. The other Kuru leaders entered the royal tent and sat silently around him. All of the Kauravas shed tears as they watched Duryodhana vent his sorrow. He rolled about on the ground repeatedly crying out, "Oh, Karna, my friend! Oh, Karna!" Gradually, Duryodhana's anger overcame his grief, and he rose to his feet. Now his eyes were coppery with rage. Taking his place on the throne, Duryodhana wiped his face with his hands and then spoke in a cold voice. "We cannot let this atrocity go unavenged. The best of warriors was slain mercilessly by Arjuna as Karna stood helpless on the ground. How can we tolerate this? Selecting another commander for our forces, we will now rush against those sinful Pandavas and wreak our revenge. Why, we have already almost destroyed their army, and they are weak from days of fighting. They have abandoned virtue and will thus lose all their power. Surely, soon we will crush them. We owe it to Karna to either slay them or lay down our own lives, thus joining Karna in a hero's unending sleep." Duryodhana trailed off as he thought of Karna laying on the battlefield. His head fell, and he covered his face with his hands. Duryodhana wept silently for some time. The anguished Kaurava prince could not come to terms with the death of his friend. Duryodhana had never dared to think that Arjuna might one day slay Karna. From the day he had first seen Karna, Duryodhana had lived with the expectation that Karna would be Arjuna's destruction. But that hope was now ruined. Duryodhana was gazing upwards vacantly, tears streaking down his dark face. Was it true? Arjuna was Jishnu, invincible? Perhaps, but the war could not be stopped now. No, Karna had to be avenged. It was that or death. No other choice was possible. And as Duryodhana gained control of himself, Kripa Acharya gently said, "O great king, consider carefully your best course now. 17 days of battle have passed, and so many men have been killed. All your brothers are dead. We have still yet to see signs of weakness or laxity in Arjuna. Dhananjay ranges about the battlefield like a massive four-tusked elephant, crushing our forces at will. And now Arjuna has killed Karna, and before that Jayadratha, even though our entire army tried to protect Jayadratha. So tell me, who is there among your troops who could face Bibhatsu? O Bharata, and also who can face the enraged Bhima? He and Satyaki are causing carnage among our troops, which makes our hairs stand on end." Kripa looked earnestly at the Kaurava prince as he sat looking straight ahead and saying nothing. Kripa Acharya also began to cry, but he continued to speak. "You have committed so many sins against the Pandavas, for which we are all now reaping the fruits. You mustered this huge army just to achieve your ends. Now it has all been destroyed. We are actually in danger. We are weaker than the Pandavas. Policy dictates that peace should be sought by diplomacy. Yudhishthira is ever merciful, and he will surely accept peace on mutually agreeable terms. So you will not lose your position as king. For neither Yudhishthira nor Arjuna, nor indeed even Krishna, will disobey your father's orders." Kripa implored Duryodhana to make peace. He was weeping to think of all the kings and warriors who had lost their lives for Duryodhana's cause. His voice trembled as he concluded, "O hero, I thus counsel you that we stop these hostilities. For this is actually in your best interests. I do not say it out of fear or with any malicious intent. Do not disregard my words, for if you act otherwise, you will recall what I have said when you yourself are on the verge of death." Duryodhana remained silent, pale with grief. He screwed up his eyes and shook violently. Duryodhana sobbed, unable to reply for some time. Finally, he composed himself with difficulty and replied, "You have doubtlessly spoken as a friend. Indeed, you have done for me everything a friend could do, going against my enemies and risking your own life for my good. And I know that your counsel is well meant and beneficial, but it does not please me. Like medicine to a man on the brink of death, your words are actually quite unpalatable. In my opinion, Yudhishthira will not trust me even if I go to him and sue for peace. I have cheated him, and I have inflicted upon him all kinds of evil. And so too, I have given pain to Arjuna and Krishna. Ever since hearing of the death of Abhimanyu, Krishna has passed his nights in sorrow. So we have offended Keshava. How can he forgive us now? Peace is simply out of the question. This war will end only when either the Kauravas or the Pandavas are dead. Things have already gone too far. The enmity is irreversible. Oh Kripa, now I am thinking of Draupadi. I have heard that Panchala princess is practicing austere vows just to bring about my destruction. She sleeps on the bare ground and accepts only 1 meal a day. Subhadra, casting away all pride, serves Draupadi like a maid in waiting. Oh Kripa, everything now is on fire. It cannot be extinguished. How can I, having shone rays like the sun on the heads of all kings, walk behind Yudhishthir? Why, I could never accept his sovereignty. After ruling this earth as its undisputed emperor, I cannot possibly face a miserable life of servitude. So, it is clear to me that continuing the war is our only choice. If I am slain, then at least I would retain my fame and go to the higher regions. Withdrawing now would only mark me as a coward and lead to degradation and infamy. Duryodhana stared at Karna's empty seat. Fighting back his grief, he concluded his speech in resolute tones. No Kshatriya desires a death at home in bed. It must come in battle, or else his fame diminishes. I have performed many a sacrifice, and I have followed my duties faithfully. I do not fear death. Let me fight and win glory, or else ascend the path trod by heroes who never retreat in battle. That path has become crowded with joyful kings, hurrying along after throwing down their bodies in this war. How can I give up this fight after seeing such noble fighters give their all on my behalf? I could not enjoy the kingdom with their blood on my hands unless I have exerted myself fully just to avenge them. I will either attain victory or heaven, and it cannot be otherwise. All the warriors applauded Duryodhana's valorous speech. Shaking off their despair now, they resolved to fight to the finish. They decided to select a new commander in the morning. They rose from their seats and then retired to their beds for the night. Vasudeva Paraveda, Vasudeva Paramukha, Vasudeva Parayoga, Vasudeva Parakriyaha, Vasudeva Parangyanam, Vasudeva Parangtapaha, Vasudeva Parodharmo, Vasudeva Paragatihi, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Scene 3. Gandhari takes off her blinders. After hearing of Bhima's systematic slaughter of her sons, and especially hearing of his brutal killing of Dushashan, Gandhari was distraught. Ever since the war began, Gandhari had been absorbed in the practice of penance, praying that the hostilities might come to a quick end. Perhaps her son Duryodhana would come to his senses, seeing the futility of the cause. How was it possible for Duryodhana to overpower the virtuous Pandavas who were aided by Krishna? But Gandhari knew very well the obstinacy of her son. So, not until every man in his army lay dead would Duryodhana end the war. Although the Kuru queen understood that her sons were dying due to their own sinfulness, yet as a mother she could not tolerate it. Each evening she would receive news of the day's events, and her heart would be racked with pain. All the great Kuru heroes were being slaughtered one after another. When Gandhari heard that Bhima had slain almost all of her sons, she felt she could take no more. Gandhari had to do something. Her long practice of asceticism had given her great mystic power. If she were to go to the battlefield, she could use that power to make her last surviving sons invincible. Simply by glancing at them, Gandhari could make their bodies invulnerable. Deciding to leave at once, Gandhari ordered her servants to prepare a chariot. Traveling swiftly, Gandhari finally arrived on the battlefield at sunset of the 17th day of the war. And when she entered the lady's tent, Gandhari received the terrible news that all of her sons were now dead, with the exception of Duryodhana alone. The old queen dropped to the ground in a swoon. Her servants quickly raised her and sat her upon a large couch, sprinkling her face with cool water. Coming back to her senses, Gandhari wept for some time. Finally, she composed herself and asked that Duryodhana be brought before her. At least she could save him. Maybe destiny would allow her to keep at least one son. Surely Duryodhana was the cause of the war. But now that Karna was dead, perhaps Duryodhana would change. No doubt, Shakuni would also soon be slain. It had only been in the company of Shakuni and Karna that Duryodhana had hatched out all of his evil schemes. But alone, he might be a different person. Within a short while, the prince entered his mother's tent and bowed before her. Duryodhana's face was drawn and darkened by grief. Gandhari blessed him and spoke consolingly for some time, and then she said, "My dear son, I had hoped that this war might end before all my sons were slain. Alas, it seems that hope has been thwarted. But still you live, my dear son. So I wish to help you. By my ascetic power, I can make your body invincible. Tomorrow, come before me in the morning, but come to me naked. At that time, I will bestow my powers upon you." Hearing this, Duryodhana left the tent, now feeling most encouraged. Surely it was Providence that his mother had come. Perhaps he would at last be able to overpower his rampant foes. Duryodhana headed quickly through the darkness back towards his own quarters. The following morning, before sunrise, Duryodhana took his bath and went back to his mother's tent. And as he entered the outer section of the large tent, he took off his clothes and was just about to go in when he saw Krishna coming out. That Yadava had heard that Gandhari had arrived, and so Krishna had gone to pay his respects. Seeing Duryodhana standing naked before him, Krishna opened his eyes wide in surprise. "What is this, O hero? Why do I see you standing here without any clothes?" "Oh, Keshava, my mother has requested that I go see her." "Oh, Bharata, have you not learned any culture from your elders? How can a civilized man go naked before his own mother? Why, I am surprised. At least cover your loins." Duryodhana then looked down at his naked body in embarrassment. Krishna was right. He could not stand naked before his mother. And as Krishna left the tent, Duryodhana wrapped a cloth around his loins and went in to see the queen. When she heard him enter, Gandhari asked Duryodhana to stand immediately before her. She then lifted the cloth which had covered her eyes ever since she was married to Dhritarashtra, and she looked straight at him. Now Duryodhana felt an energy permeating him as his mother glanced all over his body. But when Gandhari saw the cloth, she was shocked. "Why, oh why, dear child, did you not follow my directions? I asked you to come naked, but you have covered your loins, and although the rest of your body will be hard like iron, your loins and thighs will remain vulnerable to attack, for I did not see those parts." Gandhari had summoned all of her power before glancing over her son, and she felt unable to do it for a second time. So when Duryodhana told her what had happened, how he had met Krishna as he came into the tent, the queen sighed. Slowly, Gandhari replaced the cloth over her eyes. Now, her last hope had been destroyed, for surely her son would die at the hands of Bhimasena, just as he had vowed long ago in the Kuru assembly. Realizing now that she could do nothing against all-powerful destiny, Gandhari finally smiled. And once again it was Krishna. For as long as Keshava was protecting the Pandavas, the Kauravas' cause was hopeless. Queen Gandhari then dismissed her son. She had best return to Hastinapur to be with her grief-stricken husband, for soon the war would be over without a doubt. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam.